Jamie Fraser took his last breath on a battlefield in 1780. And somehow, that was not the end of his story. What happened in the final 60 seconds of Outlander has left millions of fans across the country asking the same haunting question. Are Jamie and Claire actually alive? Or did we just watch two souls slip quietly into eternity together for 12 years? Outlander gave us a love story that refused to die, no matter how many wars, prisons, oceans, or centuries stood in its way. And on May 15, 2026, that story reached its final chapter. But instead of a clean, comfortable ending, Starz handed its audience something far more dangerous. A finale that ends on a gasp, a breath, and a question mark that nobody in the cast or crew is willing to answer. Jamie Fraser is shot in the chest by a captured enemy soldier named Patrick Ferguson, moments after the Battle of Kings Mountain. The very battle that a book written decades in the future had already predicted would kill him. He falls. Claire, his wife, refuses to leave his side. She stays through the night, cradling him, and refusing to accept what everyone around her believes has already happened. Then, in the final moments of the episode, something extraordinary occurs. Claire's hair, once streaked with gray, turns completely white. A faint blue light is seen glowing from her chest. And then, impossibly, both Jamie and Claire open their eyes and take a breath at the exact same time. The screen cuts to black. No explanation. No confirmation. Just silence. This is where the real story begins, because showrunner Matthew B. Roberts has now spoken publicly about that ending, and what he said is stirring up more questions than answers. When pressed directly on whether Jamie and Claire actually survived, Roberts refused to give a straight response. He told one interviewer plainly, "You tell me, I'm not going to tell any single fan how to interpret that last beat." He went even further in another conversation, explaining that the ambiguity was never an accident. It was the entire point. According to Roberts, the ending is meant to reflect the very nature of the love story itself, something he describes as cyclical, something that is never ending and never beginning. He revealed that the ghostly figure fans have wondered about since the very first episode of the series back in 2014. A mysterious Highlander scene watching Claire through a window in 1945. Was Jamie's ghost all along? Not a time-traveling version of him from some future event, but Jamie himself, somehow reaching back through the years. Roberts confirmed that this connection had been planned since the beginning, long before most viewers even knew to look for it. But here is the detail that changes everything. The detail that most casual viewers completely missed. In the sequence before the finale cuts away from Jamie's body, there is a brief, almost invisible flicker of blue light coming from Claire's chest, right as she grieves over him. That same blue light has appeared before in this universe, tied directly to healing, to sacrifice, and to a very specific kind of magic that only certain characters seem to carry. Roberts has hinted that this moment holds the real key to understanding what happens next, though he refuses to spell it out directly. And there's more. Diana Gabaldon, the author who created this entire universe more than 3 decades ago, personally gave notes to the show's creative team ahead of the finale. She specifically requested that Claire refuse to be separated from Jamie. She also suggested the story should fade out on two figures glowing together, without further explanation, without further comment. That detail alone tells us something important. This wasn't just a showrunner's creative choice. This was Gabaldon herself insisting that whatever happens to these two characters, they experience it together, bound by something that goes beyond ordinary explanation. Then there's the post-credit scene, something so many viewers almost skipped entirely, not realizing it might be the most emotionally loaded 60 seconds of the entire series. It shows Diana Gabaldon herself, portraying a version of her own history, signing copies of the original Outlander novel at a bookstore, with what appears to be Claire's personal journal sitting beside her. A line of fans waits to meet her. But according to Roberts, none of those people in that bookstore were random background extras. Every single person standing in that line had worked on Outlander since its very first season, 12 years ago. Each book they carried was personalized, written with their own name and their own job title on the cover, created specifically as a thank you gift for the people who built this world behind the scenes. Roberts called it a love letter to the crew, and confirmed that the closing image of the entire series was deliberately handed back to Gabaldon. the woman who created these characters in the first place. It was, in his words, a way of closing the loop. So now the entire fanbase is left holding two enormous, unresolved threads. First, did Jamie and Claire actually survive that final battlefield? Or did they simply die together, at peace, in a way the show wanted us to feel was beautiful rather than tragic? And second, if there is even a small chance this story isn't truly finished, could there be a future Outlander movie waiting somewhere down the road? Because when Roberts was asked directly about that possibility, he did not say no. That single word, maybe, is the reason so many fans across the country are refusing to let this story go. When a reporter pushed Matthew B. Roberts directly, asking whether there was any real chance of an Outlander movie continuing Jamie and Claire's story, he did not shut the door. He did not laugh it off. Instead, he leaned on the same phrase he says has guided the entire cast and crew for years. Never say never. And when the question came again, more directly this time, asking if that meant a film was truly possible, his answer was simple. Maybe. For a franchise that has spent 12 years building one of the most devoted fan bases on television, that one word carries enormous weight. Roberts didn't stop there either. When asked point-blank whether he had managed to tell every single story he originally set out to tell across 8 seasons, his answer was even more revealing. The answer is no, he admitted. He explained that there was simply so much more material, so many more chapters from the books that never made it to screen, that the team could have spent years more exploring this universe and still not run out of stories. He said there is a clear appetite, both from the audience and from the people who make the show, to eventually return to it. Now think about what that actually means for Jamie and Claire. If the finale truly did end with both of them alive, breathing, together after everything the universe threw at them, then a movie wouldn't just be revisiting old ground. It would have to answer the single hardest question this ending created. How does a couple like this go back to a normal life after the entire community around them witnessed something that defies explanation? Because remember what actually happened on that hillside. Everyone at Fraser's Ridge believed Jamie was dead. They watched him get shot. They watched Claire refuse to leave his body through an entire night of grieving. And then somehow, he is alive again, walking, breathing, standing beside a wife whose hair turned completely white overnight. In a time period where anything unexplainable was treated with suspicion and fear. A moment like that would not be met with relief. It would be met with terror. Neighbors who once trusted Claire as a healer could suddenly see her as something far more dangerous. The word which would not stay quiet for long. And Jamie, a man everyone watched die, suddenly standing upright again, would raise questions that could follow him for the rest of his life. If that's the direction any future movie takes, Jamie and Claire may not even be able to stay in the home they spent so many seasons building. They could be forced to run, to hide, to start over somewhere no one recognizes them. And that raises an even bigger question. If Claire's healing powers were strong enough to bring Jamie back from the edge of death, could she have unknowingly passed some part of that ability onto him? Fans have pointed to an earlier moment in the story, years ago, when Claire herself was healed by a mysterious blue light while under the care of a man known only as Master Raymond. A figure who has never fully explained who or what he really is. If something was transferred to Claire in that moment, then it's entirely possible something was transferred from Claire to Jamie in his final moments on that hillside. Could that mean Jamie Fraser, the 18th century Highland warrior, might now be capable of doing something even he never imagined? Could he possibly become a time traveler himself? That single possibility opens the door to a story bigger than anything Outlander has done before. Claire spent much of the final season speaking about her parents more than she had in years, a detail that feels far too deliberate to be a coincidence. Longtime viewers have started to wonder if this was quiet foreshadowing, a hint that Claire's own unresolved past, the truth about who her parents really were, could become central to a future story. If Jamie and Claire really are still alive, and if Jamie really has gained the ability to move through time alongside her, a movie exploring that journey together, potentially even connecting to the current prequel series following Jamie's own parents, would give fans something they have wanted for over a decade. The chance to watch these two characters step outside their own timeline entirely. But there is another version of this ending that fans cannot ignore either. If Jamie and Claire did not survive that battlefield, If that final breath they shared was not a return to life, but a passage into whatever comes after it together, then the emotional weight of any future project would have to shift entirely. And this is where one particular loose thread becomes almost impossible to overlook. Their granddaughter, a young woman named Fanny, experienced something strange earlier in the final season, something that was never properly explained. While near the ancient standing stones, she heard the same haunting buzzing sound that has marked every time travel moment in this universe since the very beginning. That single detail all but confirmed what many fans had already suspected. Fanny is not just Jamie and Claire's granddaughter by blood. She may carry the same ability that changed her grandmother's entire life. And yet, after that reveal, the show simply moved on. No conversation with Claire. No explanation of what it means. No answers. It is one of the strangest unresolved threads left behind in the entire finale, and many believe it was left there on purpose. If Fanny truly does carry that ability, then the story the show left behind is nowhere close to finished. Imagine this granddaughter, confused and frightened by a power she doesn't understand, with nowhere to turn and no one to explain what just happened to her. Now imagine Jamie and Claire, the two people who understand that world better than anyone alive, finally sitting her down and telling her the truth. Not just about the stones, not just about the time travel, but about her mother. Because Fanny's mother, Faith, was a daughter Jamie and Claire believed they had lost forever, only to learn she may have survived under circumstances tied to the very same Master Raymond, who once healed Claire with that mysterious blue light. If a future project ever brought Jamie and Claire back together with a grown Faith, reunited through the same stones that have shaped every generation of this family, it would deliver something this show has been building toward since its very first episode. Real closure. Not the kind that ties a bow on a story and walks away, but the kind that finally lets these characters heal from the loss that has quietly followed them for years. And for a fanbase that has stayed loyal through 12 years of war, heartbreak, resurrection, and impossible odds, that kind of ending would hit harder than almost anything the show has done before. This is exactly why Matthew B. Roberts' one-word answer matters so much. Maybe is not a no. And for a franchise built entirely on the idea that true love finds a way to survive against impossible circumstances, that single word is enough to keep an entire fanbase holding on. Diana Gabaldon is still writing the 10th and final novel in this series, a book that has already been confirmed to end differently than the television series did. The current prequel series is already exploring Jamie's own parents and their story, proving this universe still has room to grow. Roberts himself has said there is a clear appetite, both from the people who make this show and the millions who have watched it, to eventually return. Nothing has been confirmed. No script exists. No release date has been set. But the door, by the showrunner's own words, has never been locked. And maybe that is exactly the point. After 8 seasons of war, loss, impossible choices, and a love strong enough to survive time itself, Outlander never really gave us a true goodbye. It gave us a breath, a heartbeat, a single blue light glowing in the dark, refusing to go out. Whether Jamie and Claire are walking through another century right now, or resting somewhere beyond this one, together, exactly as Diana Gabaldon always wanted them to be, one thing is certain. Their story was never really about an ending. It was always about finding your way back to the person you love, no matter what stands in the way. And for 12 years, that is exactly what these two characters taught an entire generation of viewers to believe in. So now it's your turn. Do you believe Jamie and Claire are truly alive, still out there somewhere, waiting for one more chapter? Or do you think their story ended exactly where it needed to, on that hillside, together, at peace? Type your answer in the comments below, because this conversation is far from over. And if this breakdown gave you chills, made you feel something, or answered questions you've been holding on to since that finale aired, do us a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to this channel so you never miss the next deep dive into the stories you love, and turn on notifications so you're the first to know the moment any real update on this story drops. We'll see you in the next one.